Listen, I've got a special guest. He's been patiently waiting and he's watching all my screw ups here, but he is the one and the only, a financial advisor from Edward Jones Investments, Bryan Piccirillo. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Hey, Joe. Good morning.
All right. Did you catch any of that intro?
I caught it all, and I'm ready for next Wednesday. I got a bunch of nuts and bolts that I need to make something out of.
Beautiful. I'm glad you caught it. And I have no idea that the lights are off on that second camera. And you and I were on, before we started broadcasting live. And I said, it's every day it's something, my engineer is under quarantine, so they didn't make it in. My sound guy didn't make it in. My extra cameraman didn't make it in. And I'm all alone, man. It's just you and I.
Hey, the downfall of live TV, we'll call it, right?
Live TV here on Facebook Live. So Bryan Piccirillo, financial advisor. Bryan, tell me a little bit about yourself. I just learned when we were talking before the show that you're originally an Ohio guy, but I could hear this Southern accent, man. How long you been here?
I'm trying to fit in. I've been here for about 5 years now. Came down, so I didn't realize what I was missing with the weather here in North Carolina. So, it was definitely a big move for me, but it's been never go back. I'm a North Carolina for life now. So.
Yeah, and you're originally from Ohio, right?
Originally from the Pittsburgh area. I went to college in Ohio, so I spent most of my adult life in Ohio.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, I'm with you. The weather here is just... it's insane, man. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. Some days I walk around, I go, I got to pinch myself. They said it's going to be chilly this week. And I'm like, really? What is that?
That was the thing I learned when I first came down here. Everybody was wearing coats and I'm in shorts and a t-shirt going, what are you guys talking about? It's not cold.
That's right. I'm from New York. Are you serious? You want to be cold? Oh my gosh. So, and cheers to you. This is coffee hour, man. We're having coffee together. I appreciate you joining me. And joining us and joining our lovely viewing audience, because I've got some of the greatest people on earth watching right now. I love these people. What made you get into being a financial advisor? I mean, were you a young kid playing the market at 12 years old? I mean, how did you land here?
I wish I was, but I actually have a doctorate in pharmacy and a master's in business. So I actually was in healthcare administration for a while. And my passion has always been really to help people. I was helping on the healthcare side and working to become the CFO at the hospital. And then I realized I just wanted to work with people again. I wanted to work with families and individuals and small businesses and really help, on a one-on-one level versus a corporate level. Looked at what my opportunities were and moved over to Edward Jones and never looked back.
Wow. That's quite the transition though. And you're a young guy. I can tell that you're not young enough to switch it up, and that's the beauty of life. You could reinvent yourself, right? And so, did you actually complete your school in pharmacy?
Yeah, I was a pharmacist and then in healthcare administration for 10 years, 15 years.
Wow.
I got my master's in business as well, so that let me get in the admin side of things. But yeah, I did it for a while.
Cool. And now you're into the financial side of things, which is exciting. It's been quite the roller coaster. I'm sure you're spending a lot of time consulting with your clients. I came up with a few questions for you. And what I'd like to do is just kind of dive right in and let's hit it, because I'm sure we've got listeners. My friends are calling me up and they're asking me, hey, because I have an Ameritrade account, and I'm there's a saying back when I used to be a sales director at a software company, and the saying was, when Joe Altieri buys, you sell. Okay. And when Joe Altieri sells, you buy. Okay. Because I've got the worst track record on earth, man. Oh my gosh.
I equate that scenario to when you're driving in the right lane and it's really slow and you get over in the left lane and then that lane starts going slow and everybody in the right side starts passing you, right?
I love that analogy because I can relate to that. So let's start with, what's the hot topic today? What are you telling your clients? I mean, I'm sure they're calling you up and they're watching things go down and up a little and then down, and The money's all over the place. What are you telling them? What are you talking about?
The biggest thing I think right now is a lot of people will freeze in fear, and I'm saying be proactive, but make sure you're making logical and timely decisions to help that financial future that you set up. You've got a strategy. You had a strategy in place before this happened. No time to derail from that. You really have to take the emotion out of the investing, which can be extremely difficult. And I'm going to repeat, that is the biggest thing for individual investors. If you're not working with somebody, you have to take that emotion out of it because it will lead to bad decisions. And when these markets become volatile, I mean, you hate to say it, but there's a lot of opportunities out there that are available. I have a dad that will drive 30 miles to get 3 cents off a gallon of gas.
I have the same.
Because it's cheaper.
I had the same father. Wow.
Yeah. So, but he's also the same father that won't buy a stock or a mutual fund because it's on sale. He's questioning why is it so cheap all of a sudden.
Right.
So it's kind of just getting that philosophy and that mindset out of your head. The biggest, the other, I'm a big analogy guy, sorry, but I also equate it to the boat in choppy waters. If you're sitting on a boat, you're going through a big storm, you jumping off the side of that boat, or you're going to stay in, you're going to hold on, you're going to weather that storm until you get through to the other side.
Yeah.
You take those analogies, you put that into your investing techniques, and you're going to be fine.
That's a fantastic analogy, actually, and I will confess, I'm not a big finance guy, and I never really kind of played those cards, but I did dabble a little bit at work with friends, and we would discuss stocks together, and I am the worst emotional person on earth, man. Like, my boss would yell at me. He's like, "Stop being so emotional." It's like, oh my gosh, I'm losing money. I better liquidate. And then when it goes back up, I buy it back. It's like, what are you doing? He actually said this to me, and I think you'll like this analogy. He goes, "Joe, you're the guy who goes to Walmart and buys the TV set when it's at its highest price. When it goes on sale, go back and buy 2 or 3 TV sets, right? And like your dad, when it goes on sale, it's almost like something's wrong with it, right?" Oh man.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one. That is exactly right. Is that there is this disconnect with how people treat their investments versus how they would treat anything else that they were investing or buying in their lives, and it tends to lead to decisions that they question. Why can't I get this right?
Yeah. So step number 1, lose the emotion. Oh my gosh. Is the market any different today than 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago? I mean, what we're going through right now, we've seen these times before.
We have. We have a lot. I actually was writing them down before this. I wrote a bunch down. So I'll run through them all just so you can know how many times something like this has happened. Crash in 1929, the 1937 Fed tightening, World War II crash, the Eisenhower recession, flash crash of 62, the 66 financial crisis, tech crash of 70, the oil embargo in 73, with inflation in 80, the 87 crash, the tech bubble, which is kind of getting into more modern times of 2000, and then the global financial crisis. All have happened, in the history of the market. And guess what? 100% of the time, it has came back.
100% of the time.
It is as of to date, the market, anytime it has dropped, has always recovered. So I like the number 100%, and I'm going to stick with the odds for now.
Stay in the boat, man. Don't jump out of the boat because
stay in the boat. Yeah.
Well, that's that's great advice, and I think for some it's easier said than done because they feel like they've lost money when you're not touching the money, you're not using the money. Why not just leave it alone? But sometimes it makes sense to maybe move it around. Yeah, no?
Right. Yes, you're exactly right. This is the time where you want to, what we call diversification. So financial people love to use fancy big words that mean simple things. It just means spread your risk around. And make sure you have the proper balances of really whatever your goals are trying to achieve. Now, that could be different for every person depending on how how much they can stomach that up and down of the market. I call it the Pepto-Bismol effect of how queasy do you get when the market moves. And then there's also time horizons of how long do we have to let this money, sit in that slow cooker and percolate until we have it to a nice place that we want it to be at.
Yeah. Well, so when you say diversify, you're referring to putting your money in different sectors, whether, I've got a little bit over here in technology. I've got so much in my 401k. I've got so much in an IRA. Like, you should have not only different segments, but also put it in different pockets. I'm not describing this right because I am not a financial advisor. Maybe you can explain that. I think you know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yep. It's you're really when you're talking about diversification, we're not going to necessarily, the accounts are really just going to determine your tax consequences or how the government's going to come at you with stuff. When we talk about diversification, we're looking at kind of like you said, the different sectors. So utilities, energy, technology, consumer staples. So you want to get a good mixture of all the different things that are out there, because when some are doing well, others aren't doing so well. And when we go back to that the fast lane analogy, you, rather than be in one lane all the time, you want to be in all the lanes. So whichever one's moving, you're in that somewhat. You also want to mix it up between what is in the stock market itself and what we call fixed income, and that would be bonds. So things that generate just income. They're not really moved by the stock market. They're moved by inflation or interest rates and things like that. So it's a gentle balance between the two of making sure you have a good spread across the board, so you're not missing out on the opportunities when they hit, versus if you had everything in one. I call it the all eggs in one basket analogy, right?
Right.
You put everything in one specific stock or one specific thing, and one thing happens to that company, and you could probably name 30 that something has happened to over the years. It's going to go from 100 to 0 real quick. Versus if you were spread across, 30, 40 different things.
Sure. You mentioned bonds, and I don't hear that word a lot.
They call them fixed income now. Again, we use fancy words now to really to kind of say the same thing. So you hear fixed income, that is the same as a bond. Most mutual funds that you're in, when you see that word income or fixed income, they're going to actually invest in bonds.
Are they popular today? I mean, I know back in the war days, right? I mean, and again, I'm not a specialist, but back in the war days, you always, you heard talk in the living room. Your parents talked about war bonds, and where is it today in a pandemic, in a situation that we're dealing with today? Is that a safe bet?
They are still around. Yeah. Still kicking. They don't pay the interest rates that they did back then, and I think that's why you don't hear as much appeal as you used to from them. But that's because the interest rates are low. But they do present a way to protect a lot of things that you have by giving you more of a consistent income versus that up and down that you see of the market. So it's a balance to what you're already investing in as well.
Yeah. Well, your answer actually was a great segue to my next question. Where are we with interest rates? I mean, you mentioned that the bonds obviously were more popular back then when interest rates were high. What's the industry saying right now about interest rates? I mean, where are we today? Where are we going?
I think the thing that you're hearing a lot, and this is spoken by the president a few times, is talking about negative interest rates and the concern of, will interest rates ever go negative? Meaning that if you are putting money into something, you'd actually have to pay interest versus get interest back. We don't see that happening. There is very limited success across the world of that actually working. So there are just way better ways for us to stimulate the economy in a situation like we're in today. The Fed, and you're seeing that now, the Federal Reserve will actually just go out and purchase things. So purchase bonds, purchase different securities that are out there to create a stimulus, which actually has been shown to be way more effective. So what we really see with the rates is this consistent low of where they're at now. We don't see many changes coming with that until really this fear of this virus situation and what is going to the economy kind of goes away. So we kind of predict interest rates to kind of stick where they are level, stay low, but not go negative, just because there's other tools in the toolbox to help the economy.
Right. I watched, I don't know, one of the news shows, and they were talking about somebody had asked a question that I probably would have asked, of saying, you know what are we doing? Are we just printing money? Like we're going to give away trillions of dollars, and every business owner is going to get a loan, and every house is going to get a check in the mail. And, I sit there and go, where's this money coming from? And don't worry about it if you can't pay it back. We're not going to worry about that right now. But what does that say for 2 years from now? All of a sudden, the United States is completely broke. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what to make out of it. Where does the money come from? Where is it a good idea? I don't know.
It is a good thing in that what you don't want to create is the cycle of not keeping the economy going. About 70% of our economy is based on me and you and everybody else spending money. So if we're not doing that is has a huge impact. So, kind of what you're saying, our country going broke, which, I think we're resilient, we're strong, the economy is strong regardless of what's going on. I don't see that occurring. But the money is printed, but then in good times, it's kind of put back into the barn. So what we see is once we get out of this and things are going well again, you pay a little bit more in different areas to kind of get that down, or you tighten your belt from a government standpoint and budget. There's a whole bunch of different ways to approach it. We've all heard them all. You kind of fit into two camps. One is the government spends less and gets that under control, or we give more to the government so they could pay it down. But those are pretty much your two camps that you can kind of fit into when you look at it or analyze it.
That's actually a very good point. When you mentioned the last thing you want is for the citizens to stop spending money. I mean, and obviously businesses across the United States right now, across the world, it's not just a United States thing. Businesses across the world right now, when people aren't leaving their houses and they're not spending money, it has a major impact. But the impact on the business owner, I don't know if this is a road you want to go down, and I hopefully you can shed some light. What if you're a business owner today and you and I are sitting here talking about investments? The business owner is going, I don't have a dime right now. I can't even open my doors tomorrow. What do they do?
Yeah. So the government has released the CARES Act. I mean, it's getting all the attention right now. However, it's very confusing and time consuming, and you're getting a lot of information and trying to figure out what's right or wrong. There's a couple of things small business owners can do, and this includes nonprofits, independent contractors, so the sole proprietors in the world that just work for themselves. They can apply for what they call an emergency disaster relief loan through the SBA. SBA.gov is the website. They can use them to basically pay themselves. It's essentially a loan of $10,000 that can be forgiven if they use it for their business, mortgages, rents, keeping the doors open, basically. If they don't use it for that, so let's say somebody just takes it out as a business owner and uses it for their own personal enjoyment, they're going to have to pay it back at a 1% interest rate. So the interest rates are even really low if you did have to pay it back for some reason because you wanted to use it for other things. There also is the payment or the paycheck protection loan, which if you want to keep your employees, it will also be forgiven, and it will cover up to 2 months of your average payroll plus an additional 25% for those rent utilities as well. So those you have to apply those to your bank that you do business with. So reach out to them, whatever bank that would be, and they'll guide you on what forms you need to fill out for that. But there's two ways to kind of get money out. You are also allowed to tap any kind of retirement savings you had. So if you were a small business owner that worked at a company before or had a retirement plan set up, you can borrow from that or take out from that without penalty. So you have that ability now that you're not going to get hit with a bunch of penalties and fees that typically would exist if you were to raise your retirement accounts. It's typically a last case scenario. for people, but it is available, and you can actually put it back in without any penalty over the next 3 years as well. So you could take it out in hopes to put it back in and not have any kind of, taxation or anything on that.
Can I ask you to define one thing that you said because I hear this term a lot. You said, you can go as a small business owner, or a contractor, wherever you fall, and get a loan that is forgiven. What does forgiven mean? Because I hear this on TV and I go, what does that mean? Is it a loan, or are you just giving me money? You're going to forgive me? Thank you. I'm sorry. I mean, what?
It is initially a loan contingent in June when they're going to ask for documentation, say, what did you spend their money on? If you can show them the appropriate documentation to show that you used it for what it's agreed upon, it then turns into a grant. It is forgiven in the sense they don't make you pay back. So the government pays it at that point for you.
So why wouldn't a business owner go for that?
I think a lot of times what it is the frustration of filling out the forms, right? Some people, don't want to take the time. I mean, the form takes anywhere between a half an hour to an hour to fill out. It requires a lot of information of digging out your tax documents and figuring out what your payrolls were and your revenue was from last year, things like that, that people just don't necessarily sit down and do, or get confused on and don't reach out to anybody for help. I think that's where I could come in. I have a lot of my small business owners call me, and we're walking through the form together and say, what does this mean? Because if you call the SBA, you're going to sit on the phone for 4.5 hours before you get through. And B, they're not really going to give you good information of what they're actually talking about to fill out. So it's having somebody that can help you with the questions you just don't know the answers to, that is reliable and understands the forms.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you very much. You have a great way of clarifying things. Man, they make this so confusing, and I don't know, you made it sound so easy, but it's really easy when you call your financial advisor and say help, right? That's what you're here for.
Exactly. Yeah.
Bryan, I want to touch on a segment that I think sometimes as a parent, I have a 23-year-old at home, and he actually said to me the other day, he calls me up, he goes, Dad, I want to learn how to play the stock market. And I'm like, do you have a job? which he does. He's a great kid, and he does have a job. But, I think our youth today, they watch, stocks come down, obviously, some great deals. They're on sale right now, as a lot of people say, right? But what about our youth today? Let's say a kid graduated college, just got his first job as a school teacher. He's in year number 1, and all he knows is this massive student loan, and I got to put gas in my car. What should they be thinking in terms of investments?
So I'm going to take a step back and say, anytime I sit down with a new grad or a college student about to grad, I'm going to say, make sure you have your debt structured to where you're getting the lowest interest payments possible. So making sure you look at what you're paying on your debt and figuring out, is that the best way to eliminate it, get rid of it? And typically that involves how much interest how much am I giving to the bank versus paying on principal? Making sure you have a good budget, that you're not overspending. So basically, giving out more than you're bringing in, making sure that's set, and then developing an emergency fund and making sure you understand what that is. I think this is a prime example of where emergency funds are huge for people, right? If you're a small business owner or a young person or anybody for that matter, if you had 6 months to a year sitting in your emergency fund, you would be okay with everything going on at this time and saying, you know what, I can get through this until everything settles down. What I found is most people skip that step because they think it's all about the investing at that point. And then what happens is then they sell all their investments at low prices, like you said,
right,
because they need the money, versus letting it sit there and do what it's supposed to do. That's really the foundation. When you put money into investments, your plan shouldn't be that this is also going to get me out of a jam if I need it. Investments should really be for your long-term strategy of whatever your goal is. And it should kind of sit on the side and almost forget about it to a degree, right? And because you have all these other funds set up to pay for it. Make sure through the CARES Act that we talked about, they understand money's entitled to them through things. So there's different ways that jobs or even the government will give them money. So when they're first graduating, there might be jobs they can take that will forgive their student loans for them. That's always a possibility. And then time is huge. Being that young, in your 20s, well, man, I wish I was back in my 20s and knew what I knew now, right?
Oh my gosh. I'm listening to you talk, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm listening to you talk, and I can't stop focusing in on, I wish I knew this guy when I was 25 years old. I'm 55.
I wish I knew me when I was 25.
Right? Seriously, how do we get our youth to talk to someone like you and study what you're saying and understand it and have the discipline? I mean, my son is 23, right? At 23 years old, he could retire at 55 years old if he plays his cards right.
So if you started in your 20s and were able to take $500 a month and put it in a retirement account, get an average return on the market, when you retire, you'd have about, we would estimate you have about $2 million in your account.
Yeah, I feel like I just got kicked in the stomach. How about when you're 55 years old? How much will I have when I retire?
Hey, there's a number for everybody, but that's usually an eye opener for younger individuals. So we're not talking about, if you're consistently working and have a job, and that includes company matches as well. If you're at a company with a match, if you can squirrel away 500 and it's boring, I'm not telling you we're going to pick the next big thing. I'm just saying if we got average market returns, you're going to have that. And it's boring, but it works. It's a process and a strategy that's worked since the beginning of the market.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah. Hey, that's great advice. I think the problem, at least I'll speak for myself, when I'm 23 years old, are you serious? I actually one time, and I don't even know if I want to admit this on my morning show, but I'm going to, because everybody knows that I'm a really nice individual now, right? And I was a nice individual then, but one day we sat down and we figured out if we drank $200 a month starting on high school graduation day, how much money would we have? We literally sat around the table one day and figured this out. And how much money would I have in my pocket today? It was a lot of money. It was like over $100,000. And I sit there and go, wow, if I only didn't drink, right? I mean, you don't realize those, $25 here, $50 here. You really don't realize how that adds up. And then when you can put it in a market and put it in the right place and have the interest take over and grow, who thinks of that when you're 23 years old, right?
None of us do.
That's the problem with this country, Bryan. We have to help the youth, man.
That is why I'm here. I love working with new grads because their eyes are wide, their ambitions are high, and the opportunities are amazing if they stick with the right strategies and like you said, kind of understand it doesn't seem like a lot now, but it will be a lot later. Yeah, you are absolutely right. I want to touch on recession. I'm a morning show, positive, upbeat, let's feel great, start your day, wake up to the vibe. Let's talk about a recession. Right? It's just kind of an oxymoron. Financial advisor. Can you shed some light on the word in general and tell me where are we, where are we going, what's going on? Yeah. So the word gets thrown around a lot, and we're starting to see that. So a recession is basically just a slowing of the economy instead of growth. So instead of up, we're going down with growth in our economy. We see that in the first quarter, and we predict that again with the second quarter, and that's because we're social distancing, we're staying at home, and businesses are suffering. I think there's a lot of us, suffering out there, and it's really in the efforts to contain this coronavirus. but we believe that the market will rebound. We were a strong economy before this virus just hit us, right? The thing, it seems like forever ago, but 2 months ago, we were running around and things were
fat and happy,
humming along, and things felt good. Yeah, things felt good, and then we kind of hit this. So as things return to normalcy, remember what I told you. Most of our economy is based on consumer spending. So once people get out there again, I don't know about you, but I cannot wait to go to a restaurant and eat. Or
I said to Michelle yesterday, I just want to go out to breakfast. It's the one meal I love to sit down in a restaurant and have a nice omelet. I mean, it's just, I can't wait, man.
Yeah. So it's, when things go back to normal, we expect it to kind of pump back up. And those are the bigger points that we're not seeing that we didn't see in past situations, like people bring up the Depression or things of that nature. The economy is in great shape. The government has actually put a lot of money into the market, which typically we didn't see in previous times. They've been very proactive in trying to get people money and help businesses and help individuals. And then the other thing I remember, I'll kind of go back into investments again. Your investments and your money isn't the market. So if we're talking about the market, remember that what you're invested in doesn't necessarily reflect what's happening in the stock market and the economy as well. So you've got to keep that in mind as well.
Well, I think that's the advantage of having a financial advisor on your side. So you have your own identity, your own game, your own strategy. Don't just follow the market. Don't just, because they're all doing this, you should be doing this. I mean, that can lead you down a road to ruin in some cases, right? Reach out and get yourself a financial advisor and play your cards right. Do you have to have a lot of money to get a financial advisor? I know that's a crazy question, but and again, my brain is going back to the youth. I mean, can somebody go to a financial advisor with a couple $1,000s or do you need to have 10 grand?
Nope. Anybody can go to a financial advisor. I honestly, being biased in a situation, I believe everybody, regardless of your socioeconomic status, needs a financial advisor. I'm a person of, I don't know everything, but if I can find somebody that knows more than me about it, I'm going to say, give me every piece of advice you can and help me out in any way you can.
Yeah. Be a sponge.
But it is a common misconception. You need a lot of money to work with a financial advisor. You don't. You just need to have a understanding that you're going to them as a partner and somebody that wants to do everything they can to better your life. And they're going to help you develop those strategies and those tools that you need. And it's, really, you're the CEO of your own company. You're just bringing in somebody to help you with it. But, like I said earlier, I work with a lot of new grads here from UNC, Duke, just because when they're just starting out, they need a lot of help of understanding what is the right thing to do, what doesn't make a lot of sense, because, you hear the bad stories out there of people being taken advantage of with situations of what they're investing in or what they're sold or things like that. So, it's more critical than ever, kind of like you were saying, a decision you make early in life can impact you for the next 30, 40, 50 years, right?
Right.
Had you taken your drinking money and invested that, you'd be sitting on a few $1 million right now on it. But you don't look at it that way.
Something tells me I am not going to live that example down by many of my listeners. But it painted a picture, right? I got the message out there, right? Give up your drinking money. You don't need another cigar. Oh, man. Bryan, I'm going to let you give out your contact information and let us know how we can reach you. I mean, I'm sure. Are you limited by laws and policies to help people only in your region, your state? Like, can you help a guy in Ohio or someone in New York?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I work with clients all across the United States, California, all the way through New York, Florida. So I'm in every corner. I am the way our advising service works is I am a personal financial advisor to those that I work with. So you don't have an 800 number. You call me directly. I come visit you. We do web conferences, things of that nature, but I can work with anybody across the country. So I have people everywhere, all over the place.
Excellent. How does one get a hold of you?
You can always call my office. That number is 919-968-2176. Look me up on the internet, Bryan Piccirillo. You can always email me as well, Bryan, Bryan .Piccirillo, Piccirillo @edwardjones.com. Right now, like I said, everything is complimentary. I think that's another question that people ask. Hey, how much you gonna send me a bill? No, I'm here to help people right now in this situation. So any questions you have, anything with a dollar sign on it, be happy to answer any questions or help out anybody I can.
Outstanding, man. You gave some great information today, and it was very nice meeting you and having coffee with you this morning. I've learned a lot. And yesterday I learned on how to step up my game with style. She did a fantastic.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I'm just becoming a new man under this quarantine. I'm going to leave this house a completely different person, and I'm going to start managing my money properly. I'm going to dress right. This is good stuff, man. I really appreciate you taking the time at 7 a.m. and joining me here on Wake Up to the Vibe.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate you giving me the time. If you ever need anything, you know how to get a hold of me.
Yeah, for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go away, Brian. We're gonna chat for a second once I exit the show, but I got a couple things to say, so kind of just hang tight with me if you could.